Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Glenorchy Planning Authority meeting for the 17th of March 2025. I would like to start by acknowledging the Muranina people as the traditional owners of this land. We recognise all Tasmanian Aboriginal people as the original owners and continuing custodians of the land and waters of this island, Victoria. We pay our respect to Aboriginal elders past and present. We commit to working for a city that welcomes and respects all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Now, item 1, declaring ourselves as a planning authority. The Glenorchy Planning Authority intends to act as a planning authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act of 1993. The Planning Authority has full power to make planning decisions on behalf of the Council. We have meeting procedures, and the first one is the Planning Officer presents assessment and recommendation and then answers any questions of elected members. Please note at this stage there has not been any decision made on the application. The chairperson invites the applicant and any interested parties to have their say by addressing the meeting, and speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. The chairperson may ask the planning officer to comment on any matters raised. The Planning Authority discusses the application. 5, the statutory planning applications. For the statutory planning applications, the Planning Authority decides the application and the Senior Statutory Planner explains appeal rights. And 6, the planning scheme amendments, the Strategic Planner explains the decisions being made by the Planning Authority and the Tasmanian Planning Commission. We do have some legal requirements, and these are: when deciding an application, the authority is required by law to seek to further the sustainable development objectives of the Act, consider representations received during the public notification period, and make the decision by reference to the current planning scheme provisions. We also ask that everyone complies with directions given by the chairperson, myself, and please respect other people's views and their right to have a say. Now, we move on to apologies or leave of absence, and I'm happy to say that we're in full attendance, so that's fine. Item 3, is there anyone who'd like to declare a pecuniary interest in the matter before us today? No. And that leaves us on to confirmation of the minutes. Do I have someone move the minutes of the Glenorchy Planning Authority meeting held on the 17th of February 2025? And that's Alderman Tim Marks. And do I have a seconder? Thank you, Alderman Stephen King. Do you want to start the debate, Alderman Marks?
No debate. I was about to say there's no debate.
Just moving it, yeah, thank you. Is there any further discussion required? No. So the Chair invites the relevant Planning Officer, Darshini Bangaroo Hyde. Sorry? Beg your pardon? Oh, haven't I passed them? I beg your pardon. Confirmation of the minutes here, so there's no discussion.
All those in favour?
All those in favour. I thought you were going to say you wanted to talk. All those in favour say aye. Please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now I'm inviting our Planning Officer, Darshini Bangaroo Hyde, to present the proposal, who finishes with the recommendation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Planning Authority and members of the public. Today I'm going to be talking about Planning Scheme Amendment PLAM 2206, which relates to heritage review and includes various properties. So the proposed planning scheme amendment is to allow several fix-ups to the Glenorchy local heritage code lists as follows, including delisting and removal of below threshold sites currently listed under Table C 6.1 of the Glenorchy LPS, changes to existing heritage entries to better reflect the extent of heritage values, and addition of 3 council-owned sites to the heritage list. So a bit of background, we undertook consultation for this project with all the affected landowners. This includes private properties and council properties. for the delisting and amendment of heritage entries. We consulted with private landowners between September and October 2024. We received no negative feedback for the project. For council properties, we undertook consultation with Council Property Services Department. Then we engaged an independent heritage consultant to peer review what we were proposing. Then there were subsequent ELT briefing and elected members workshops that were held in November 2024 and Feb 2025, which basically gave us the final endorsement to include a selected number of council-owned properties. I will pass on to David Param, our Heritage Officer, to describe the proposed amendments to the heritage listings.
Thank you.
So essentially fall into three categories as Darshini summarised, and put a bit of background. This is the first substantial amendment we've embarked upon since about 2011. An amendment was made to add in the order of 80 properties to our list. That's a long time ago now. And that amendment went through in 2013. So as I say, a decent amount of time ago. This is an opportunity for us to restore some integrity to our list. In the ensuing period, we've moved from the Glenorchy Planning Scheme 1992 to the Glenorchy Interim Planning Scheme 2015, and now to the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, and that was in 2021. Each of those moves required transition and translation of our lists. There was no opportunity to add to our lists in those times. So, and in the transition period or the translation period from the interim scheme to the Tasmanian planning scheme, the state government introduced a range of criteria, explicit criteria against which statements are required. And it was during that process in constructing those statements that we identified a number of properties that didn't satisfy the thresholds for listing, and those are the ones we are proposing for delisting. And when I say thresholds, there's a bar through which you apply to see inclusion and exclusion criteria, and objectively assessing that is how you identify whether a property might make the list or it might not be suitable for listing. So that applies to the places that we're proposing to delist. It's also the case over time, and it's not uncommon with heritage lists that sometimes further and better information comes to light that prompts a review of a listing, or circumstances change that means how you view whether part of a site needs to be listed, and in the case of council properties, the properties that we're proposing for listing today were identified as part of a previous heritage study, but because of the ensuing period when we're essentially bound up in reform, they haven't been able to be progressed, so we're progressing those now, and that's essentially the background to it. And so I think the report sets out, summarises why some of these properties don't make the grade. They're the ones in front of us now. Essentially, they range from places that don't demonstrate the criteria for listing. A lot of them are in Lutana and close to the Lutana Garden Village, but are essentially part of that village. And you've got to remember too that I think our listings have been added over time, and so we had an initial core group of listings probably added back in the 1990s, very early on, and then different criteria have applied depending on which planning scheme's in place. So this is the reason for taking these off, is when you try and apply it, you find that there's difficulty in constructing a statement, gives you the first indication that they were flagged for the review, they've been reviewed, and this is why we've come to this conclusion now. And then we move to for example, if I use, can you go back please, Darshini? If I use the Kalang Avenue properties there, you'll see highlighted in red, there was a subdivision off the end of a heritage listed place in 123 Barossa Road. Those development of those properties have no conceivable impact on the core heritage values of the place, which is sort of highlighted if you're looking at it to the north, if you like, of that view. And so we're proposing to remove those properties from the list, because currently if they whenever they put an application for development on those places, they need to satisfy the heritage code, trigger a discretion that needs to be advertised and what have you in the scheme. So we're going to unburden them from the listing, because they could have development there, could have no conceivable impact on the heritage values of that place. So we're proposing pulling those off. If I just roll through these perhaps, if you're happy. This is a site that everyone's probably familiar with, which is the interchange at the new Bridgewater Bridge in Granton and Black Snake Road. The former property there has been demolished. That was enabled as part of a planning scheme, a clause in the planning scheme previously, and then through the major project. So there are no values left there, so that can now be removed from the scheme. So we're proposing removal of that one. And this is, this particular building here at 105 Main Road is remaining on the list, the one that's pictured on the prominent corner, clearly of heritage and architectural significance. The proposal is to remove the broader part of that listing, which does encompass Dickinson's Arcade, because the changes that have been made to Dickinson's Arcade over time have been such that it no longer it doesn't reflect those values. There's been a heritage assessment that brought that to light, a detailed heritage assessment, and so we're proposing to refine that listing as well. And it doesn't mean that Dickinson's Arcade is not an important element in Moona. It's still an important element, and people can still value it as such. There's no issue with that, but in terms of the actual thresholds for listing, it prompts this revision. Cadbury Road pine trees. So here we have the remnants of a line of trees that snaked around Cadbury Road and along the approaches to the Cadbury factory. It was part of Cadbury's landscaping. There are trees located within the property that are heritage listed at the moment. There are trees located in our road reserve that are not heritage listed, and all we're seeking to do here is bring that listing into parity so that both are listed, and to refine the listing to reflect that what we're just talking about is landscaping philosophy, because in time those trees will need to be replaced, and the objective then, the heritage listing, the objective then will be to potentially have succession planning, so you have additional plantings to reflect that philosophy, but not necessarily in pine trees. So that's the objective there. This is another well-known site in Claremont. Clearly has some architectural merit, and is not currently listed, and the proposal is to list that site as well. And again, the Labor Bureau building, very significant building, if unassuming, right next to council chambers. Proposal is to list that important history and also former library prior to the construction of the current library, and that holds a lot of fond memories for many people in the community. And this is a slightly unusual one, but the council garden originally was the site of, during historic period of times, during post-invasion, was the site of the Dusty Miller Inn very early on in Glenorchy. An archaeological assessment that we had prepared at the time of the CBD project. We knew the Dusty Miller Inn was there, but we informed ourselves about the significance of the site, and that identified some archaeological potential. So we're proposing a listing under a place of archaeological potential, the area that contained within the dashed line, the dashed red line. The different colourings reflect different proposed treatments. The red is where the actual maybe remnants of the inn itself, and the other colours are where there are either structures or intervening spaces that may contain artefact-bearing deposits. So we have a lot of information on that as well. And that's essentially that's the proposal insofar as heritage is concerned.
So in conclusion, by preparing this amendment, the planning processes for some of the sites where there is no significant heritage value will be simplified, while other sites where there is heritage value, the values will be protected by the listing. So that's the recommendation on the screen for the Glenorchy Planning Authority to prepare this planning scheme amendment and then place the planning scheme amendment on public exhibition for a period of 28 days and obviously submit the planning scheme amendment to the Tasmanian Planning Commission.
Okay, do we have any questions from our members? No? Okay. Now, we do have some members in the gallery and we note their presence and we invite, I think it's Louise Foster. Would you like to make some commentary on the amendment?
No, not on the amendment.
No?
No. This was just a sort of like a planning comment. Was it okay to talk about a new?
I believe so. Is that correct, Darshini? Yes? All right, we'll come to the table, please, and explain it, and then we can make a decision.
Okay. So I've been in my property I think it's over 35 years, and I'm still waiting on the stormwater, and just wondering if it's at all possible. I've actually contacted the council several times, and no one gets back to me. And also, I've had an issue with my road. I'm not quite sure whether this is the right meeting to come to, but a road where there's a grate, and when there's lots of rain, it overflows, and then it's flooded out my garden. I've also contacted the council in regards to maybe the actual footpath edging needs to be built up so the water stops it from flowing into my property. But unfortunately, I haven't got back. They haven't got back to me.
Okay, well, we can fix that now, but this isn't the appropriate forum. So
That's
it's okay. We'll put you in touch with the director.
Right.
Yes, and you'll certainly be attended to today.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm sorry, we should have headed you off.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. Eddie Steenbergen, would you like to make any commentary today?
Mostly I did have questions, but they're all covered by the introduction, so
Brilliant.
any questions?
Well, we're very happy if you're very happy. Thank you. Now I'm going to ask somebody, there's no further commentary? No. I'm going to ask if one of our members would like to move the recommendation and then allow the mover and others to speak to the motion and any other discussion. Oh, that was quick, but I think Alderman King was first and then we have Alderman Cockshut.
Mayor, this seems very straightforward to me. We probably could have taken this as read, although I appreciate the representation and the quality information we've received today. Got a very well written report here. It explains it quite clearly, and I'm grateful for the work that's been done by our Heritage Department planning officers.
Thank you. Would you like to say something, Alderman Cockshut?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, echo my fellow Alderman's commentary. Very clear and concise report. Thank all the officers involved, and hopefully moving forward for those properties who have been delisted, it'll allow them more flexibility in the future moving forward with any developments they may have. So it's good to have that burden from Heritage point of view taken off them.
Okay, any further discussion?
Just a comment, just so it's good practice to be, obviously a number of planning changes as it happened. So in terms of making sure that we're up to speed with the current one, I think it's a positive thing to be thinking at and doing. So happy with that.
Thank you, Deputy. Alderman Marks, do you have any comments? No? Okay, I'd just like to also support it. Very thorough and very interesting report, I've got to say. The number of little things we have to tidy up from time to time, it was quite fascinating read, so thank you. No further discussion. I'm going to put the vote motion.
Back to the mover.
Oh, yes. Would you like to have a commentary?
No.
No, thank you. I'll put the recommendation to the vote and invite, first of all, do that. Motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And I now invite the Senior Statutory Planner, Darshini, to explain the process from here.
So now that the GPA has determined to place the planning scheme amendment on exhibition, this will occur in from March to April. If we receive any representations during the public notification period, we will prepare another report for the GPA, which will likely be presented in May or June GPA meeting. The planning scheme amendment will then be submitted to the Tasmanian Planning Commission. The Commission will undertake their assessment, consider representations, and hold hearings where required. And then the Commission will determine whether to approve the amendment with modifications, or reject the amendment.
Thank you very much. Okay, with that, I'm going to close this meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance in person and online, and I do encourage you to stay around for the 4:30. Oh no, you can't come to that one, I'm afraid, it's a workshop. Okay, so have a good evening, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.